Welcome to Orange Weekly, presented by Krause Health. Alongside Mike Waters, I'm Brent Axe. Coming up, we'll hear from our colleague Mike Curtis on a lot of hardware coming the way for Syracuse women's basketball. A number of awards won there. We'll hear from Syracuse basketball head coach Jim Boeheim as the Orange heads into a unknown postseason fate here, Mike, as we will discuss here shortly, and following a bracketologist galore over the next week or so with the ACC tournament approaching. But look, an impressive win all around for Syracuse against Clemson, and it was, I think, easily their best defensive performance of the year. Are you seeing some emerging trends there and why this team is playing better defensively, Mike, or was it just kind of a good day against Clemson?
Yeah, I'm going to be very cautious about calling something a trend after just one game or two games, if you want to include their effort against North Carolina. Because, I actually thought they played really good defense against the Tar Heels. And I say that because North Carolina is a more talented offensive team than Clemson is.
Right.
Clemson plays lower scoring games. Sometimes they'll struggle to shoot from the outside. I think it is encouraging to see that these two back-to-back defensive efforts coming, at this point in the season. Syracuse, it's the type of defense Syracuse is going to have to continue to play if it's going to win any games here on out, because once they get into big ACC tournament, oh my God, Brent, did you hear what I almost said? When they go to Greensboro and not New York City, they're going to run into tough teams, whether they open up in the second round against Duke or end up having to play North Carolina State. It's a tough game right from the get-go for them. So I think they're going to have to lean, really heavily on that defense.
Mike, this is a walking wounded team, too. You got Quincy Guerrier fighting through a knee injury. You've got Kadari Richmond fighting through a knee injury. Marek Dolezaj's got a broken finger. Alan Griffin's not 100%. I mean, good God, everybody's got some wear and tear at the end of a season, but they're all tricky situations for the coaching staff to monitor because it pretty much comes down to like pain tolerance. I think they've determined they can't injure themselves any further in these cases. So at least they get some time off here. I don't anticipate Syracuse playing a game on Saturday. And why would you? You just played 3 games in 5 days and you've got a banged up team. So pretty interesting that Syracuse has all these notable injuries as they head into the postseason.
Yeah, and I think that's why, on top of a number of other reasons, you never were going to see a game on Saturday. It gives these Syracuse players the time to rest up, heal up. Most of the injuries seem along the lines of you've tweaked something, you've bruised something. Like you said, they're injuries that you can play through and you're not going to hurt yourself further. Marek's not going to break his finger more. Quincy can't bruise his knee more just by playing, right? So they get a chance to rest up, which will be good for all of them. And I think this team could use a break. Those 3 games in 5 days was a tough ask for them to come home and win the last 2 of those 3. What was, again, just all the more impressive. But I think all the guys will be just fine by the time they take the court again in Greensboro next Wednesday.
Speaking of which, you're heading into the postseason now, Mike. I used this line in my column this week from the great Bruce Hornsby in The Range. That's just the way it is. Some things will never change. And that's Syracuse on the bubble, right? Just sitting squarely on one side or the other, trying to determine what their postseason fate's going to be. I don't think there's any question they've got to win in Greensboro. How many games? I don't know. I guess we're just going to be following this and tracking this and refreshing net rankings and bracket matrix and all this stuff over the next week. This sounds familiar.
Very. We've gotten really good at this stuff on the bubble. Sometimes I feel like I'm better than even the bracketologist, at least when it comes to Syracuse. It's like, forget Lenardi and Jerry Palm and all those guys. You really want to know, listen, you and me, we can figure this out.
Waters and Axe, we got it down right here.
Here's the thing you have to remember if you're a Syracuse fan and you're looking ahead to next week and you want to know how many games Syracuse has to win to get into the tournament. It's one more than you probably think. Because let's say you think one win over Duke in the second round should get them in because a loss to Florida State in the quarterfinals isn't going to hurt you that much. It gets you in, according to Jerry Palm or Mike DeCourcy. Here's the problem. You're only barely in. And next week we're going to get the bid stealers that come in. And if you're only barely in, you're the first one out. So if you really want to get to the point where you feel safe, even if you feel like Syracuse could get in with one game, you got to win two to make sure they're in. And again, we're just guessing through all this because no one really knows what the NCAA committee is going to do with this season. There's so many irregularities, unbalanced schedules, teams that didn't play teams but once or didn't play teams at all, maybe had no non-conference games. It's, so it's really difficult this year to try to cipher out what the committee's going to do.
And let's throw another layer into this conversation, Mike. There's going to be some standby teams for the tournament this year because, look, if they can put everybody in Indianapolis and Indiana, right, and not one team tests out of this thing, congratulations to you, because that is a minor miracle, because that's not a true bubble they're playing in Indianapolis. If that happens,
Brent, I would be this close to saying somebody is cheating on some tests in Indianapolis, because I don't know how you bring 68 teams, and we've seen the season the way it goes. You know, at best, conferences are getting in 80% to 82% of their conference games. Many other conferences are only getting in like 65 or 70% of conference games. So you telling me a 100% of those 68 teams are going to be able to fly through there? I know. So here's what we're saying. Syracuse on standby. They get the emergency number 2 seed. and they don't come home till April.
That would be the most Syracuse thing ever if that happened. So we're standing by, you stand by, and we'll see what happens going forward here. In the meantime, Michael, thank you. We'll hear from Mike Curtis coming up. We'll hear from Syracuse head coach Jim Boeheim next. It's time for Syracuse Soundbites.
The defense is a 5-man opportunity. It's a 5-man group that everybody has to play defense, and tonight we did. And, Clemson's a pretty good shooting team. I mean, Honor made 6, I think, down there. He was the primary guy we wanted to stop, and he didn't make a 3. I think he made 5 in the first half down there against us. He was the primary guy. Hemingway and Dawes were the other 2 good shooters, and they are good shooters. But, we just played so much better here, and that happens sometimes. We've been really good at home. We shouldn't have lost any games at home this year. We gave away 1, but it is what it is.
Mike, it's all one and done from here on out for the Syracuse women's basketball team. We're in the postseason, but with the end of the regular season brings awards, and plenty of them for the Syracuse women's basketball team, for Emily Angsler, Camila Cardoso, and Tiana Moncacahia in particular.
Yeah, Brent, those 3 players breaking huge awards before this postseason begins. Camila Cardoso was named the ACC's Rookie of the Year, as well as the Defensive Player of the Year. She also earned an All-ACC First Team nod, which is big considering she's a freshman going against all those upperclassmen. Tiana Moncacahia, she was just named today the Bob Bradley Spirit and Courage Award winner for 2021. So she came back from breast cancer and led the nation in assists this year with 7.5 a game. So that's incredible. And Emily Angsler, she was named the ACC's 6th Person of the Year. She shed 40 pounds in the offseason and really made an impact. She was an impact player for this team and pretty much did offense, defense, whatever the Orange needed her to do. She was able to provide that for them.
All well-deserved there. But, Mike, I wanted to focus on Camila in particular. You had a great story about her that's up on syracuse.com now that people should check out. She had quite an interesting journey to Syracuse, and you spoke with her high school coach about that.
Yeah, I spoke to her high school coach, Keisha Hunt, a couple of weeks ago, and we really just talked about how she was when she arrived to Hamilton Heights Christian Academy in Chattanooga, Tennessee, a little over 4 years ago. Keisha said when she arrived to her school, she was really raw in her talent, and she didn't have the post moves that we all see today with her being in Syracuse. And it was an interesting note in that conversation. Keisha had to get her scholarship approved by the former principal, then athletic director as well. And he didn't think that Camila was good. He said, she's missing every shot. But Keisha told him, like, do you not see that that's a 12, 13-year-old that's 6'5" and runs the floor as fast as the guards? And by about a month into her playing, he was able to say, hey, I'm so glad that you encouraged me to like get her over here. So that was pretty cool.
Mike, all told, how is this team playing going into the postseason here? They don't have as quite of a stressful situation as the men's team does in terms of getting in the tournament. I think the women's team will be in the tournament. How did they come together towards the end of the season, and how do you see them as a potential postseason team in the NCAA tournament?
Yeah, it's interesting, Brent. This team was touted to finish number 3 in the ACC, and they ended up number 5. But they had a 28-day COVID pause and a lot of schedule changes. But one thing that sticks out to me, when they did play the Louisvilles, the North Carolina States, they made it competitive. I think they're as talented as a group as anyone in the country. They just have to figure out a way to put it all together. And when Camilla's down there dominating on the inside, she has the ability to attract defenders and kick it out for shooters. They just have to knock down those shots. Now they had a couple of stretches in the regular season where they got off to slow starts in the first quarter, and that can't happen this time of the year. This is the time where you have to be locked in, focused. You have to bring your best basketball as soon as the ball tips.
That is Orange Weekly, presented by Krause Health. Thanks to you, Mike. Thanks to Mike Waters for joining us as well. We'll talk to you next time.